Come here. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Hello, person. You can tell I went to a lot of trouble to look good today. Hopefully more persons will arrive. Not that there's anything wrong with you. We've got a few minutes before we start, and then the class will begin. We're gonna have a good day, I hope. Riley, hi Riley, how are you? There's 2 people now, yay, plus me, I'm a people. I'm a people. I'm kind of a people. I'm doing all right. It's been a bit of a week for me, and it's only Wednesday, and I'm like, ugh, what the hell? But here I am. And now we're streaming again. We're back into that. I'm a little behind on my grading in all my classes, but you know, I'm getting there. It's getting caught up. Yes, please. Today will be a good day for questions. Oh, it's there's no such thing as late in this class. It's literally like there are suggested deadlines, but nothing is actually due until the end of the semester for me. Like I can't speak for your other classes, but as long as you get everything done by the Friday before I have to turn in grades, uh, I'm fine. I'm happy. You take whatever time you need to take, do whatever you need to do. I'm not interested in putting anybody on a schedule. So I can't speak for your other classes, but for me, do what you got to do. You're fine. Oh, sorry, it did not. That was my bad. Let me. I wonder nobody's showing up. Hey, yeah, yes, yeah. As far as the essays go, yeah, I have unlimited attempts on all of my assignments. So, um, where's the link? Link. He come to town. He come to save the Princess Zelda. Sorry. When I have unlimited attempts on all of my assignments. So if you turn in an essay, I'll give you feedback, and then you can do it again if you like. So that's why I suggest people um, do it early, so that I can have time to grade it and give feedback, and then you do it again. Uh, but you don't have to. Okie dokie. Yeah. So the short version of that rambling answer is yes. You can turn in the essay whenever you like, and I will give you feedback, and then you can try it again. Haha. I'm so helpful. What? Oh, come on. Come here. Get out of the garbage. We've got just a few more minutes. 5 people. Hey, no problem. 5 people. It's okay. We're gonna make it anyway. I was thinking about making today mostly for questions about videos and stuff and assignments. I don't have a good sense of like what you guys have watched in my video list, my playlist, and what you haven't watched. Um, like I don't know. I signed up for a gym membership right before the pandemic hit, uh, so that was helpful. I've used it like twice. I need to get back to that, but also I don't want to die. Um, so there's that. Okay, well, I've got 1 o'clock here. Maybe my clock is fast. I don't know. So, okay. Um, Hi, how are you? I hope you're well. Um, we have 8 people. That's nice. Now there's a link in the email, so that's good. Um, I hope everyone is surviving, and thriving is a little much to ask for under the current circumstances. So let's just stick with surviving. Um, that's my hope. Um, oh, okay, Sarah. Good call. Good call. Um, so that's probably my fault. I've tried to let me take a look. I've tried to sort of I put the general Humanities One playlist out there, but I haven't embedded like specific videos in the schedule or anything. So I guess it can be a little confusing, right? I've been like, watch this, and I thought I was doing a good thing because like I wanted you guys to feel like you could just sort of watch it on your own time. But I realize now that I've done a bad thing. And the bad thing I did is that uh, I didn't really give you a sense of where you should be at any point. And so that's my bad. Um, let's see here. So there is the list of videos under there is the list of videos uh, that take you to the Humanities One playlist. Um, Mike, right? If you're just sort of trying to get caught up with Mesopotamia and Egypt and stuff like that, let's put it this way: you don't have to watch any of the. Yeah, we're a little behind, Shelby. I'm so sorry. Um, well, Sarah, let me. I'm gonna hopefully try and get everything back on track. But the I tell you what, tonight I'll post a sort of revised schedule that pins the videos to the various chapters. That says if you're working on this chapter, uh, here's a video, or if you're working on this unit, watch these videos. Like I said, I mistakenly thought that just putting the list up there would be good for. Oh, careful. Would be good for you guys because it would let you sort of work at your own pace, but I didn't provide sufficient guidance, and that's on me. Um, so hopefully that'll be, uh, that'll work out better. And as I was telling Riley earlier, Sarah, it doesn't. You can do the essay at any point. There's no real due date, and there's no real due date. I mean, I have suggested guidelines for when you turn things in. Um, yeah, I have suggested guidelines for turning things in, but I don't have hard due dates. You can always do the you can do the essay, and I can give you feedback, and then you can turn it in again. You can rewrite it and turn it in again. I have unlimited attempts on all of my assignments. So I don't care when you get it, as long as you get it eventually. So anyway, I don't. So yeah, that was just I made an error of judgment in how I was presenting some stuff, and now that I've got feedback from you guys, I can correct that and sort of align things more closely with the videos in a way that's more explicit. So cool. Hopefully that's helpful. Um, leave her alone. She's 16 years old. Sorry, the cats are the old cat is being bothered by the rest of the cats. So okay, so yeah, we are running a little behind. I want to catch us up. So I think what I want to talk about is I want to get us transition from talking about Mesopotamian cultures to the Greeks, sort of move us in that direction. And I've got some videos on the rest of the stuff. Um, I'll get you that schedule tonight. So okay, hopefully that helps. All right, so let's dig in. Um, so the videos will cover some material, and the reading and the videos will cover some material. Uh, my pleasure, Brooks. My pleasure. That helps. that helps flesh out uh, the Mesopotamian cultures and what's going on there. But um, what I want to do is kind of draw a line from the Mesopotamian cultures to the Greek cultures and the Greek culture, and give a sense of how things were different in those two areas. So, okay, um, Mesopotamia, if you'll recall, was one of our cradles of civilization, a place where uh, really heavy duty agriculture gets going pretty early, earlier than just about anywhere else. Um, and the reasons, of course, for that had to do with the climate and the access to fresh water, uh, the rivers, the two rivers, the relatively flat, fertile land. Those things all sort of combine to make it easier for agriculture to get going in a hardcore way. Now, because agriculture had been going in a really hardcore way for longer in Mesopotamia, it was one of the first places where we get writing. First, to take care of, to keep track of um, where the grain is, but gradually it developed into more than just that. Um, communicating all kinds of ideas. The social structure in Mesopotamia is what we call a classic autocracy. And I've got this in some of the other videos, but I'm gonna. Oh, caps lock is on. Why? Why is caps lock on? Autocracy. Um, it's a classic autocracy, and it has kind of a pyramid-shaped social organization with one person, usually called a priest king at the top. And I don't like that term. I'll tell you why in a minute. Usually called a priest king at the top, or just the autocrat. Um, the autocrat is up at the top. Um, and the autocrat is up at the top of things. And below the autocrat are a class of priests that provide a sort of bureaucracy that help run everything, that manage the grain collection and distribution, and so on and so forth. And then the soldiers uh, uh, that enforce the will of the autocrat. And then at the bottom is a huge mass of farmers, people who are just growing the grain. Now, autocracy is just one person who has all this power invested by the gods, so they think. They believe that gods and monsters run the world, and that the autocrat, as the priest king or the person who maybe has divine heritage, is connected to the gods and monsters that run everything, and therefore the is in charge, right? The priestly class is in charge. Why? Oh no, that's fine, Adriana. That's fine. I totally get it. Um, we were just discussing, by uh, uh, Gregoriana, who just arrived. There's a strange noise I'm hearing. What am I hearing? Okay, well, whatever. We were just discussing that we were just discussing that the I'm going to make a schedule to sort of associate the videos with the readings, so that you guys know more precisely what's going on there. Anyway, um, yes, Trenton, that is correct. The priest king was also known as the autocrat. Um, those are like those terms are not exactly contemporary, but for our purposes, that works out perfectly. No problem. Under the autocrat, immediately under the autocrat, you've got other priests that help administer everything, that help run the society, and the soldiers that are under the priests that enforce their rule. And then after that, aside from a small group of merchants that aren't really and artisans, almost everyone else is a farmer whose labor is being directed by the autocrat and the priestly class. These are good questions. Yay! I like this. So, autocrat at the top, priests right below them, and then farmers. That is one reason, Breckenridge. We'll talk about that shortly. Um, so, ah, so like I said, cultivation, intensive agriculture with a lot of agricultural surplus um, meant that there were high stakes. First of all, you could get a lot more. How to put this? There was a lot more return on investment. To make it sound kind of creepy, there was a lot more return on investment for exercising force. You could take if you were in Mesopotamia, you could take slaves and enslaved workers and things like that, and oppress the farming class with violence, and you could get back a huge return on investment in terms of grain that way because the land was so flat and fertile and and just perfect for farming as a large scale operation. Um, there was the autocrat or the priest king could see a benefit, a return on investment if you invest the resources necessary to have your troops equipped and trained and then send them out to oppress the farmers. You would get a lot more grain, right, by doing that, by enslaving people and oppressing the farmers, and that direction of force would give you something back. Okay, so the autocrat has an incentive, a material incentive, to claim absolute power and to use force to maintain this top down authoritarian structure. The problem is, because of the limits of technology at the time in Mesopotamia, you cannot project your force very far. And so this is why we get cityscapes, right? Like Sumer and Uruk and Ur and those other cityscapes. We get cityscapes, which is say your main political unit is one city, and then they can project force in a region of maybe 15, 20, 30 miles at most because of the limitations of technology in the era. You can only move so far so fast. And once you get a few days away from the where the autocrat lives, the autocrat is kind of a distant figure, right? As far as being afraid of his troops and following his commands, like it's going to take him days to get to where you are. So we can defy the autocrat with a little more impunity. Cityscapes eventually in Mesopotamia over time, they would learn better methods of social control so that one cityscape could kind of like wrangle the other cityscapes, could like get locals to uh, do the oppression for them. Right? That sounds crazy. It's like a pyramid scheme for oppression, right? Like Amway, but for making people grow things with swords. Um, they weren't growing things with swords. You were making them with swords grow things. Anyway, that Words. What are they? Anyway, um, but you get the idea. Eventually, like I said, the Mesopotamian cultures would learn this idea of incentivizing the leaders. Like Sumer would conquer a city and install leaders in that city who had material incentives through money and power and luxury and things like that, material incentives to oppress the locals uh, in the name of Sumer. Hello, Dahlia. Um, so, uh, so what you get is still though each city state can only project power a little ways away from it. And when you get empires in Mesopotamia, they're a little bit fragile. Enemies can carve off pieces of your empire fairly easily, and um, it's very, all it takes is a little instability at the central part of the empire for the pieces outside to break off under their own authority and say, why am I sending all this grain back to Sumer? I can just be the king here. Ha ha ha! I have power. That kind of thing. Okay, like everyone does. So anyway, in Egypt, they had a Sumerian style autocracy, except, as I've mentioned before, in the Nile River Valley, it's easier for the autocrat, the priest king, the pharaoh, as he was called in Egypt, uh, it's easier for the autocrat to maintain control over the entirety of the Nile River Valley because it's easily navigable by boat and everyone lives very close to it. So you could have an autocracy where a single autocrat is controlling a much larger area because it's all connected by the river valley that they have control over through with their boats. Okay. Any questions so far on autocracy, other than the very good ones that you've already been asking? No? Okay. Okay. So, in Greece, how is Greece different? Well, autocracy, here's the thing. Everybody likes to think they would be the autocrat, but in real life, most of us are probably just going to be farmers. So, well. Anyway, um, there we go. Statistically, more likely to be farmers. Okay. Uh, so by the way, the reason I moved the camera is to give room to this little spoiled monster. Um, okay. Um, okay. Uh, so where was I? Right, Greece. So here's the deal with Greece. Greece has very different material conditions from Mesopotamia or the Nile River Valley. And material conditions are going to determine a lot. Like, well, not to confuse the issue, but at the same time as they're developing autocracy in Mesopotamia and in the Nile River Valley, you have a fairly simple tribal structure in Western Europe. And the reason why Western Europe wasn't developing autocrats is because there was no way to do intensive agricultural cultivation with their level of technology. Um, so no autocracy, right? It all comes down to the condition of how you produce food and sustain yourself, right? The condition of your material circumstances. Um, that's just a fact of life, right? the the situation that these different people at the same time in human history found themselves in shaped how their society was going to develop, because it's not like they could do certain kinds of, they just couldn't do certain kinds of societies um, with the materials they had available. Like, we'd love to do an autocracy, guys, but there's not enough agricultural surplus to sustain a whole priestly class and a whole class of soldiers. And because agriculture isn't that big, isn't producing that much surplus, no one gives a shit what the priests think as much, and so on and so forth. Right? It's just the conditions are not there. I don't know why I'm doing that, but anyway, the conditions are not there. So instead, in Greece, the conditions were not there. Now, I'm not saying they didn't do any agriculture, but Greece does not have major river valleys the same way that the Nile does, the same way that Mesopotamia does. It has a nice climate, and you have access to easy access to calm waters where you can do fishing. So that's nice. Um, but uh, because you can't get massive agricultural projects going the same way you could in the Nile River Valley or Mesopotamia, uh, and because, as Brackenridge mentioned earlier, the geography of Greece makes it harder to project force over large areas, um, even more so than in Mesopotamia. Right? In Mesopotamia, it was harder to project force over large areas, but the place is relatively flat, so you could conquer a neighboring city and then incentivize that city to enforce your rule in your name by sending regular shipments of soldiers and money and grain and whatever, bribing the dominant class in effect. In Greece, Greece is very rocky. And if you've played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you know this. Look, I actually am a huge Assassin's Creed Odyssey fan because they did a very good job of doing a really cool render of classical Greece. Now, this is ancient Greece we're talking about back in the second millennium, but the land was the same. Greece is all carved up with mountain ranges and hills and little valleys, and yes, yeah, Egypt's big. Egypt's unusual geography um, gave it a sort of strange cultural flavor, and I'll talk about that elsewhere. But yeah, thank you. That is a good point, Breckenridge. Um, they were very isolated, and they didn't have to deal with outside invaders very often. Um, and as a result of that, and the rhythms of the Nile, they developed an unusual kind of cultural flavor, I guess. But the main cultural flavor in Greece was that although the people spoke the same language and shared a lot of similar cultural traits, on the whole area of what we now call Greece, there were lots of little like independent enclaves. The farming was much closer to subsistence level. They couldn't develop such massive surpluses that they could support these enormous non-farming classes the way you did in Mesopotamia or Egypt. It was much closer to subsistence level. And if you had a city-state like Athens or Sparta or whatever, it could exercise some level of control over its neighbors. It could project a certain degree of force, but those neighbors, it was going to be hard, much harder, because rather than marching over flat ground, you're trying to move your soldiers over very rocky terrain. It was much harder to control your neighbors. So what you've got is a situation where A city state is going to have a lot more trouble controlling its neighbors than you would Mesopotamia or in Egypt. And I should just say Mesopotamia there. And even within a particular settlement area, like within a certain valley, um, because of the lower margins of agricultural production, there is much more need for cooperation, right? There is much more need to, you can't generate enough force to control your neighbors. You have to learn how to negotiate with the other major producers. Now, because farming is fundamentally a family affair at this point in history, we don't have a cash economy that lets you like hire free labor. It's a family affair. What you have are prominent families that will be landowning families that have some extra wealth. They own large amounts of land. They are wealthier than other families. And then those families have enough wealth to afford good good armor and weapons for their sons who are of fighting age. So rather than having a professional class of soldiers that are controlled by the priests, like you do in Mesopotamia or in Egypt, what you have in Greece is the fighting men of Greece are drawn from mostly, although sometimes they recruit people from the lower classes. Still, the fighting men of Greece are drawn from the younger sons of prominent families, and they are answerable to their fathers in these situation. So imagine now little groups of wealthy families that have enough money to equip their sons and maybe some additional people who are loyal to their house. Um, and so each family and its farming complex has its own little group of soldiers. And in any settlement area, you've got several families and their little groups of soldiers, and they could spend their time fighting each other, but it's more productive to cooperate. How are you going to cooperate in that situation? How are you going to resolve disputes without fighting? You don't yet have a system of laws like where you can just go take someone to court and there's like a whole bunch of stuff. What you have is a person. Like if you have a dispute with somebody, I don't know if every family works this way, but I've known families where if people in the family get into a spat with each other, some older, respected member of the family will try to mediate, right? Well, imagine that going on. That each family has a family leader, and then those family leaders, when they need to solve something without violence, which is wasteful and inefficient, without if they need to solve something without violence, they will go to someone picked from among their own ranks who is agreed upon as the person that will mediate these disputes. Now, some of that agreement may be due to like that person's ability to enforce their disputes. Like maybe that person is tougher or wiser or has more soldiers or whatever. So like you can get behind them, and if you throw your support behind this person, you know that when they make a decision on how things are going to go, on how a dispute should be resolved, that it'll actually go down that way, right? It'll actually happen like that. Well, what we see here is a model, what we call simple kingship. The simple kingship. I'm in the wrong window. No. There. The simple kingship model, where there is a king, and then there is a class right below the king from which the king is drawn, um, of nobles, of wealthy people who have the wherewithal to the money, in other words, or not money in this period, but the trade goods available to them, the agricultural surplus to equip and outfit soldiers uh, in their own house, in their own little family unit. So this model of simple kingship grows up in an area where there is not sufficient agricultural surplus to support full blown autocracy. Everywhere in human history where the agricultural surplus is great enough, we get full blown autocracy. And in places like Greece, where the agricultural surplus is smaller and it's harder to project force, um, we get simple kingship. And the reason we get simple kingship is because it requires negotiation. Right? Is everyone with me on that? That you're in a position where you have to at least negotiate some of the time. The autocrat has enough surplus grain to outfit a massive group of soldiers and priests to enforce the autocrat's will. The autocrat believes that they have connections to gods and monsters and they rule by divine right, by this power given to them. And they can enforce their will. If someone says, I don't want to do that, the autocrat says, I am the autocrat. My word is law. My every whim is law. You're going to do it because I say so. Right? Reality is mine to command. Um, Whereas, I'm not sure exactly I have to do with this, but whereas um, in Greece and other places with a more marginal rate of agricultural production, the king does not have the ability to say, "My word is law. I'm going to do everything you do is I mean, the king says, "Here's how we're going to solve this." And someone says, I don't want to do that. And they go, you defy your king? And he's really hoping that works, right? He's really hoping that works. Um, like he's super duper hoping that the person won't defy the king because simple kingship is messy. The In a simple kingship, the person who is king, by definition, does not have enough power to force everyone to obey. In a simple kingship, someone only gets to be king when other people in the noble class support them. And the king has to be able to rally the nobles to them. If the king stands alone, the king loses in a simple kingship. It's that simple. It's that simple. I'm great at this. Now, in a simple kingship, if the king stands alone, the king loses. The king needs allies in the noble class. So the king has to be forceful, yes, but the king also has to have diplomatic abilities. The king has to develop a political skill of getting people to cooperate. And in a simple kingship, the king is only going to be able to be king over a relatively limited region. Okay, why am I telling you all this? Because one, it illustrates how the different material conditions result in different social and political arrangements. But the other reason is that soon we're going to see a conflict between the Persian Empire, which is a Mesopotamian style authoritarianism, a Mesopotamian style autocracy, is going to run smack dab into Greek style rule of law and simple kingship. And that's going to be a clash of ideology, a clash of philosophy about how things should be. Because in simple kingship, the individual is, let's say, more free. Now, that sounds weird, because it's a king. You're saying we don't associate kings with freedom, but the fact of the matter is, we're dealing with a model of social organization where the quote unquote king, the ruler at the top, does rule by force, yes, but they don't actually have enough force to be like jerks about it. That's the technical term. Don't be a jerk about it. You get the idea. They don't have enough force to just come down hard, right? They have enough force to make, like, if certain groups of people are causing trouble, they have enough force to make them regret it. But if it gets too widespread, then they're screwed. Um, if the Persians had conquered Greece, well, I don't know. That would be interesting. That I have to think about that for a little while, honestly. Because Persia, even though we think of autocracy as bad, it doesn't have to be. I mean, it's bad. It does have to be bad in certain ways from a certain point of view, because of this idea that the autocrats, if you have the idea that the person in charge must be answerable to the people below, then yeah, it's necessarily bad. But in other ways, the Persian autocracy, the Persian Empire at that time was far more advanced than the Greeks. Like, women had equal rights in their society, and there were laws to protect religious diversity. And yeah, it was very multicultural. Yeah, the Persian Empire had a fully functioning postal system. It had an educational system that the government directed, like for everyone to get an education. Um, in Greece, a woman couldn't leave her house without a man accompanying her, and she certainly couldn't. Well, she couldn't very easily own property and stuff like that. In Persia, women had like virtually equal rights to men. So yeah, Persia was an autocracy, um, but that doesn't mean that it was all bad. The situation is a lot more complex than that. So anyway, um, the differences in material conditions bring out differences in social organization, and that's going to be crucial. And that's going to be crucial for the first essay, if I recall correctly. And I go into this more in the pre-recorded lectures, which I will post a schedule of the lectures, and how they relate to the chapter, so that you guys can be a little more on top of that. That was my bad. Anyway, any questions right now? Um, Kat will be taking your questions, right? Hello, Kitty. No, not going to take their questions. Okay. Um, any questions on that? The cat is looking at me like, what was that all about? And I don't have a good answer. Right? He is an adorable little monster. His name is Elias. Um, and yeah, yeah. His name is Elias, and he is very cute, which is good because that means we haven't killed him yet. Um, I don't really know how to measure power, but probably whatever Chinese dynasty was in power at that time. Maybe the Persians, though. The Persians were definitely the biggest empire at that time. But okay, I feel like we get good on the material. Thank you all for asking. Thank you for asking for the schedule. Um, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that uh, tonight. I will get the schedule written and posted, and we'll be all happy and good. Yay! Happy and good. It'll be happy and good, and Elias will be terrible, And great, Sarah. I'm so happy. Yeah, I will get everything organized as best I can for you guys. And please remember, there are unlimited attempts on the quizzes. There are unlimited attempts on the essays. And the only hard due date is the Friday before uh, the I turn in grades. I prefer if not everyone turns in all their stuff right at the end, please. But that's the only hard due date I have because, and if you do an essay, I will give you feedback and as well as a grade, and you're free to try it again if you'd like a higher grade by incorporating the feedback. Um, I'm happy to do this, Dalia. No problem. You can do that. I believe in you. I believe in all of you. So okay, yeah, I don't care when you learn the material as long as you learn it at some point before the class is over. And frankly, the only reason I say at some point before the class is over is because I don't have a choice organizationally. Like I don't care if you learn this material now or like in a year. If you get it, I'm happy. But I don't like it's organized by semesters, so I don't have any control over that. But yeah, just do your best. Feel free to email me with any questions. I'm a little behind on my email, but I'm working on it. And I will, that's good. I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay? Yay. Talk to you soon. Bye. Love you all. Be well. That's totally okay, Adriana. It's totally fine. Art classes are super intense, and I get it. So, bye.